Hi again then folks, and welcome of course to the second out of 10 builds in Special Projects pack number 5. This time of course we are returning to an aftermarket tuner brand that's legendary in Gran Turismo, a car though which has not been featured for many years and many games, unlike the R34, which you tend to see in a decent amount of games for an aftermarket car. This one is much more rare to see pop up, the MiNEs R32.5 GT-R, which we last saw, I believe, in Gran Turismo 2, as I recall. This one is based on the specs of that car, rather than a real-life machine, so I only went as accurate as Gran Turismo used to be, for a hit of that nostalgia, which means 1,500 kilos, 615 horsepower. As it turns out, it sits at just over 600 points, so potentially gives you quite a bit to work with. Of course, I will have flashed up on screen the name of the creator of the livery, or at the very least, guiding you down into the description to download the livery if you want to grab it. Of course, tons of people have done these liveries for the MiNEs R32, so you can pretty much take your pick. This is just the one I went for. We've gone for sports brake pads, because of course it is a road car. You don't want it to feel too good, as crazy as that sounds. Likewise with the tyres, I've left it on sports hards. For club sport, we've got the sports brakes and the clutch. The power restrictor is fitted. As far as the semi-racing stuff, we've got the fully customised computer, the crank. I've gone for the medium RPM turbo for a couple of reasons. One, of course, you want to get up to the right power, which is 615 in the case of this one, but also medium RPM tends to be a bit of a best of both worlds. The high RPM is, as the name suggests, only really good when you properly get up there on a wide open track, and low RPM can sometimes peter out a bit too quick. It's great on Tsukuba, maybe nowhere else, whereas the medium, it's a nice middle ground. Again, as the name suggests. We've got the fully customised limited slip diff, of course, for the race parts, the polish ports, the balance tuning, the race intercooler, filter, silencer and manifold. The suspension, of course, the torque vectoring diff. I would definitely recommend that on pretty much any all-wheel drive car, to be honest. None of the extreme stuff, and I haven't gone for any of the ultimate stuff either. Now, of course, with the livery fitted, with the parts fitted, we'll jump back into the garage for the actual setup side of things. Of course, being an aftermarket car, there's not as much to get into as there would be with a race car. We've got the sports hard tyres fitted. For the suspension, I've gone for 105mm front and back. Probably sounds quite high, but if you look at the car, it does look like it sits about right compared to the real car. Anti-roll is on 4. We've got 35 for the dampers, 43 for the expansion, 2.65 on the frequency, so definitely higher, but not crazy high. 1 degree of camber. No toe on this particular build. I didn't personally feel it was necessary while testing it. As far as the diff, I've gone for 20 on the front, 60 on the back, and a 40-60 split. With this particular car, and the one that always comes to mind for me, is back when I did that Mitsubishi FQ440 build, the diff, especially when it comes to torque vectoring, really does change the character of the car. And I believe that for some people, you may find this car to be a little bit understeering. At the end of the day, it is four-wheel drive and weighs 1,500 kilos, and it's not a small car, so I guess that's to be expected with 615 horses. But I would recommend, and of course we'll talk about this more in a second when we take it out on the track, I'd recommend treating it a bit more heavy-handed than, for example, a race car. So really throw this thing into corners, really power onto those brakes, and treat it like a machine that you kind of have to wrestle with. Treat it like Godzilla, I guess, in effect. So treat it like a car that wants to be wrestled with, and it will be very rewarding if you do. As far as the transmission, of course, that was standard. You could fit another one if you want to. I opted to keep that kind of raw, original transmission feel. The ballast, of course, is not being used. ECU is 100%. Downforce doesn't apply for this one. And here you can see all of the other parts that I have fitted. So naturally, all that remains once again is to jump out to the track and see what it can do in practice. So as I said, this is definitely a car which I would recommend really getting hands-on with. It's not the kind of car that is, contrary to what you'd think of a GT-R, going to do all the work for you. It is very forgiving, and it has a tremendous amount of grip, even with the diff setup and rear bias that it has. But even so, you want to brake very hard, brake nice and early so you can really throw it in across the apex almost. Don't rely on the car just kind of coasting through a corner, because it's not going to do all of the work for you. I like the fact that it has a bit of chunkiness to its steering. It feels like it kind of bites back, or at least as much as a four-wheel drive car ever really can. And of course, with 615 horses and being a GT-R in general, it is phenomenally quick. The mid-range really has a nice classic retro lag punch to it as well, but again, because it's not the high RPM, it doesn't have so much lag that it's difficult to work with. And of course, I would recommend, especially with the sports tyres, and sports brakes I guess, scrubbing off so much speed and so much power, you do want to brake a little bit earlier than, for example, in a modern car, say a GTR R35 for example. So if you give the car respect and if you learn how to use it well, which isn't that difficult all things considered, it is a very, very rewarding car to use, so I hope you have a ton of fun with it. Of course, check out the Lamborghini build, which I did earlier on today for the first one of the 10 vehicles, and it goes without saying to stick around for the other 8 cars that I'm going to be doing in special projects this week for the rest of pack number 5. So of course, I'll see you then for the next build, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.